Good evening, folks, ladies, gentlemen, everyone who Googled Night Court thinking it was an 80s sitcom. Sorry to disappoint. Or if you're into caffeine-fueled chaos and courtroom absurdity, you're welcome. You have entered the wacky, wonderful world of Night Court, where the cases are real, the crimes are bizarre, and I'm one bad day away from interrogating my own reflection. That might have been today. Tonight, we've got a lineup that'll make your jaw drop and eyebrows raise. We'll dive into the week's top courtroom drama with the murder of Matthew Restelli, a case so bizarre that you won't believe it's true. And then we have Brad Simpson, who is a walking, talking red flag and deserves the Worst Husband of the Year award. Our case in chief is that of Wisconsin v. Maxwell Anderson, an upcoming trial that will be like watching a train crash in slow motion. And don't miss our Just Desserts, where we are serving up conclusions to the cases of Chloe Driver, a story that proves once again that cults, they're a bad idea, and Derek Daigneault, who was brought down by the goodest boy. But before we dive in, let's address the elephant in the room. No, not you. Although, I'm sure you have some very important thoughts to share. How's that trial going, by the way, in Lake Colorado? No? Oh, now you're playing the strong silent type. Elephants, man, stubborn. Great memory. They'll always remind you what you did wrong years later, but they're stubborn. Oh. No, I mean that metaphorical elephant. The one that keeps asking, why are we doing this? Why are we giving criminals the benefit of the doubt? Well, my friends, in this courtroom, we believe in one thing: humor. Because when you're dealing with the law, sometimes you need to laugh. Otherwise, you might cry. Courtrooms are supposed to be serious, right? Justice, fairness, all that good stuff. But let's be real for a second. Have you seen some of these trials? Take the one case I read about recently. A guy actually tried to argue in court that he didn't steal a car because he, quote, borrowed it with vibes. Vibes? Imagine a world where vibes are a legal defense. It'd be like, Your Honor, I didn't miss my car registration deadline. I filed my renewal on a spiritual level. Spoiler alert, vibes didn't hold up. Turns out the justice system prefers receipts over energy auras. Who knew? But hey, these trials might be absurd, but listen, real lives are on the line. That's why we're here to laugh at the madness. Keep a straight face about the seriousness of it all, and maybe find some justice along the way. Because in Night Court, we're not just watching the insanity unfold. We are here to find the humor in it. And trust me, there is plenty of humor to go around. So grab your snacks, grab your drink, or grab a chair if you're just here for the gossip. This is a judgment-free zone, unless, of course, you're a criminal. And then, yeah, we're 100% judging you big time. Welcome to Night Court. Let's get started, because it's time for the word on the street. Gather round for a tale that could only unfold in the Golden State. A 35-year-old California woman, clearly inspired by a mixture of MacGyver and Firebug, decided to hold up a 7-Eleven using a makeshift flamethrower. Now, if you think you have something in your ears, no, you heard me right. A DIY flamethrower. She combined an aerosol can and a lighter, aiming to channel her inner action hero, or villain, depending on your view, I guess. Now, let's just pause for a moment. If you're resorting to crafting homemade weaponry to rob a convenience store, perhaps it's time to reevaluate your life choices. I mean, this isn't Breaking Bad. It's more like Breaking Bad decisions. So, armed with her fiery contraption, she Just like that, she storms into the 7-Eleven at 3:20 a.m. because naturally, that's when all the high-stakes heists go down. She threatens the clerk, who probably just wanted to finish his shift without becoming a human there's no H in s'more, JT. S'more. What does she make off with? A whopping $10 to $15 worth of merchandise. Yeah. She risked felony charges for the equivalent of a couple of Slurpees and a pack of gum. And not even the good kind. It's the one that turns into concrete in your mouth in around 2 minutes. You know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, chances are eventually you will learn. But our criminal mastermind didn't get far. The Manhattan Beach Police Department, clearly not fans of impromptu pyrotechnics, apprehended her just hours later. It turns out this wasn't her first rodeo. She'd been arrested 12 times in the past year. At this point, she's probably on a first-name basis with the booking officers, and not only that, but she's just one punch away from getting a get-out-of-jail-free card. So good luck to her on that, because now she's facing charges of robbery and assault with a deadly weapon. And all for what? A late-night snack and a story that sounds like a rejected plotline from Jackass. So what have we learned from this? If your big criminal plan involves raiding a 7-Eleven with a DIY flamethrower, it might be time to reconsider. Maybe start small, like learning how to use a microwave before upgrading to arson. And remember, if you're risking jail time for gas station snacks, you've officially lost the plot. But hey, at least she'll have plenty of time in jail to perfect her flamethrower skills, because nothing says bright future like becoming the Martha Stewart of felony pyrotechnics. Everybody, I have not seen these yet until just now. Let's just hope that her next invention is a fireproof excuse. Oh, man. Listen, also interviewed with the parents of a teen who had already been eyeballed for the crime. When asked about it, they said, "We're just relieved it wasn't our son." I heard through my headphones from across the world a collective groan. All right, so the next story we have, in a story that sounds like it was ripped straight out of the plot of a true crime documentary, Melissa Lucio, a mother of 14 and a woman who has spent 15 years on death row in Texas, might just get the justice she's been waiting for. And no, this isn't the setup for some gritty drama. It's real life, with a surprising twist of celebrity advocacy and unshakable hope. Lucio was convicted in 2008 of capital murder after her 2-year-old daughter, Mariah, tragically passed away. But as with any good courtroom drama, there's more to the story. Lucio has long maintained her innocence, and new evidence suggests that her daughter's death was likely an accident, not the result of abuse. Now, this is where the plot thickens. Enter her. I'm sorry. I'm just impressed. Enter Kim Kardashian. Yes, that Kim Kardashian. The reality TV star turned justice warrior has used her platform to hold a glass. I mean, to advocate for Lucio, raising awareness about her case and championing her cause. I mean, say what you will about Kim's reality show antics, but when she decides to advocate, she doesn't hold back. Her involvement brought a spotlight to Lucio's case, helping push it into the national conversation. And that's where the glimmer of hope comes in. A growing movement of advocates, including Kardashian and a host of legal experts, have argued that Lucio's original trial was riddled with issues, from questionable interrogation tactics. She was grilled for hours shortly after her daughter's death, to evidence that was never fully presented in court. The case has more red flags than a poorly officiated soccer match or a Tinder date gone really, really wrong. Either way. The big question here is, could Lucio get a new trial? It's looking more and more likely in 2022. Or sorry, it's looking more and more likely I can't believe I missed that either. Dang. In 2022, her execution was stayed, giving her legal team more time to fight. And they've been fighting hard, backed by a wave of support from people across the country who believe that the justice system failed Lucio. But the most inspiring part of the story, it's Lucio herself. Despite everything she's endured, years on death row, separation from her children, and the weight of a wrongful conviction, she's held on to faith and hope. She's also become a symbol for reform, sparking conversations about how the justice system treats vulnerable people, especially women and people of color. Her case isn't just about her anymore. It's about questioning how we seek justice and how we handle cases involving grief, trauma, and the potential for error. It's about making sure that the legal system isn't just a machine. It's a system that listens, learns, and evolves. Good news was reported on November 15th. Cameron County District Court Judge Arturo Nelson is siding with the appeal of Melissa Lucio and said her, quote, conviction and sentence of death should be vacated. The judge said that Lucio has, quote, satisfied her burden and produced clear and convincing evidence that she is actually innocent of the offense of capital murder. And he can be seen here in his robes, the judge, also auditioning for the front album cover of Simon and Garfunkel. Definitely. So as Lucio waits for the next chapter in her story to unfold, she should be freed from custody soon. We're reminded of something powerful. No matter how dire things may seem, hope can thrive. Whether it's in the form of a reality TV star shining a spotlight, a team of dedicated lawyers working tirelessly, or a mother who refuses to give up on her fight for justice, hope is what keeps us moving forward. So here's to Melissa Lucio, her fight, and the people rallying behind her. Because sometimes, even in the darkest places, light can find a way in. Now, let's take that light and traipse right on into the darkness of the brief. Better bring your flashlights, because this one might get a little dark. All right, we're going to be starting with the Restelli case. The story of Matthew Restelli seems to be ripped from the headlines and based on true events from other cases we all know about. It's almost like an episode of a new Law and Order spin-off series, Law and Order Family Business. It has the intrigue of the alleged Adelson family plot, as well as a bit of the Lori Vallow crazy. So much family drama, so much crazy, so much night court fodder. We are here for it. In a scene reminiscent of Charles Vallow's alleged murder, Kathryn Restelli lured her estranged husband, Matthew Restelli, to her mother's home in American Fork, Utah, on July 12, 2024. Both children were asleep in an upstairs bedroom at Tracy Grist's residence when the events of the night unfolded. Matthew was still in California, where the couple lived together before Kathryn took their children without his permission and fled several weeks prior. Matthew had been led to believe that Kathryn was willing to reconcile, so he traveled to Utah to pick up Kathryn and their children, then return home. However, when Matthew entered his mother-in-law Tracy Grist's home, he was shot by Kathryn's brother, Kevin Stanley Ellis, who claimed self-defense. Naturally. This incident mirrors the event of Charles Vallow's death at the hands of Lori Vallow's brother, Alex Cox. The face in the middle just was. This is the face. This is the face that I never want to see again. Who had also claimed self-defense for shooting Vallow, who had been lured to Lori's home. Lori Vallow is presently in Arizona awaiting trial for her role in this alleged family business conspiracy, Alex Cox died without ever going to trial. Now, back to the case. At 10:07 p.m., a neighbor heard shots and tried to contact the family by phone. When no one answered, the neighbor called 911. This 911 call was made at 10:09 p.m. Grist also called 911, but not until 10:15 p.m., 6 minutes after the first 911 call. From the American Fork Police American Fork, is there another fork? Police Department, or AFPD, report, and this is directly from there. Quote, Grist reported her daughter was going through a separation and her daughter's husband brought a knife and Grist's son Ellis shot him. Police officers found Restelli just inside the front entrance of the home. He had been shot multiple times, once in the chest, twice in the back, and a shot through his right wrist. First responders tried to save Restelli's life, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. According to the probable cause statement, officers saw a knife in the victim's right hand, which was photographed and removed as CPR was performed. When Ellis, Grist, and Kathryn Restelli were asked which of them had the gun, Ellis replied, "I did." Oh, there he is in his Mickey Mouse shirt. Oh boy, I did it. According to Kevin Ellis's lawyer at the time, quote, the victim drove from California to take Kevin's sister back to California, and that, quote, the victim showed up at the incident location, entered the house without knocking on the door or ringing the doorbell to the house. The lawyer also said that the victim had never been to the house before and was deemed an armed intruder. As detectives reviewed the photos taken of the knife, or the photo taken of the knife found in Restelli's hand, they noticed a few details. One, well, the blade was facing inward toward Matthew rather than outward, as would be expected if threatening someone. The knife was in his right hand, but he was left-handed. The grip was incorrect. The knife was held backwards with the finger grips pushed into his palm instead of fitting his fingers. Charging documents alleged the delay between the shooting and Grist's 911 call was due to the knife being placed in Restelli's hand. Now, during the investigation, police discovered cocaine and drug paraphernalia in Ellis's bedroom at the residence. A toxicology test following his arrest showed positive results for cocaine. Here's a brief overview of what police discovered during the investigation per court documents. Kevin accumulated multiple convictions in California for battery and DUI. This resulted in Ellis being designated as a restricted person, which led to one of the felony charges filed against him in this case. Both the gun and the knife that was alleged to have been staged were both traced back to Tracy Grist. In 2020, Grist bought the 9mm semi-automatic handgun from a client. In addition, the EvaTac brand knife was linked to Grist's trip to California in April of 2024. Grist's internet search history showed that she had been... she looks so mad. Oh. Grist's internet search history showed that she had been researching Utah gun laws, as well as what the consequences were if a parent took children over state lines without the permission of the other parent. Grist also conducted multiple searches on a murder-for-hire case out of Florida, in which the victim's ex-mother-in-law was ultimately charged, along with her son and his girlfriend. This mother-in-law is Donna Adelson, and the son is Charlie Adelson. The victim in this murder-for-hire case was, of course, Dan Markle. As a reminder, Charlie Adelson was found guilty in court and is appealing his case. Donna Adelson remains in jail awaiting trial for similar charges for her part in yet another alleged family business conspiracy. The day before the shooting, Matthew offered to rent a car for Kathryn to drive her and the children back to California. But she and her mother devised a fake ankle injury. A fake ankle injury which would prevent Kathryn from being able to drive. Thus, Matthew would have to come to Utah. Investigators also questioned Kevin's claim of going to the garage to retrieve the gun he used because Matthew was found right inside the door. If he had actually entered the home and Kevin had to retrieve the gun from another location in the house, Matthew would have been further into the house. Also, at the time of his detention, Kevin was actually wearing a holster. If it weren't for stupid criminals, on coke no less, good grief. It was discovered that day prior to Matthew's death. Kathryn consulted a divorce lawyer. She received bad news about her custody questions. She was told that she was considered a California resident and would have to file for divorce there, and that custody would not be simple. Kathryn later texted friends about the negative outcome. The day after Matthew's death, Kathryn showed crime scene photos to a friend via video chat and told friends she was happy about Matthew's death. She also told friends she wished she had taken photos of Matthew's body. In addition, on this same day, the day after Matthew's death, Kathryn went on a date. Kevin Ellis was arrested the night of the shooting and ultimately charged with first-degree murder, second-degree felony obstruction of justice, third-degree felony domestic violence in the press. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. That one on the right just looks really familiar, and I couldn't tell you why. Third-degree felony domestic violence in the presence of a child, 2 counts. Third-degree possession or use of a firearm as a restricted person, Class A misdemeanor possession of use of a controlled substance. On October 29th, 2024, both Kathryn, Matthew's wife, and Tracy, Matthew's mother-in-law, were charged with first-degree murder, second-degree felony conspiracy to commit murder, second-degree felony obstruction of justice, third-degree felony domestic violence in the presence of a child, 2 counts. It's just a Skittles list. Kevin Ellis has a preliminary hearing scheduled for December 18th, 2024. We're going to continue to follow this case of the family who, just like others we have seen, decide that the murder of a spouse is much better than a divorce and a reasonable child custody agreement. Rather than 2 children with 2 loving parents who put aside personal animosity to raise those children, one parent decided unilaterally for everyone. As a result of this bad decision, once again, there are 2 children with 0 parents and a lifetime of bad memories. Now, let me end with my top 10 to date stupid facts that we know. That's awesome. 10. Having cocaine and paraphernalia around children and at a house where a crime is committed, the entire house is the crime scene. So of course it's going to be found, stupid. Number 9. Conducting multiple internet searches about a well-known mother-in-law murder for hire scheme, custody disputes crossing state lines, and rushed passports for children. More stupid. 8. Providing a gun and knife for the alleged crime that can be easily traced to you. Very stupid. 7. Sharing a chat video of the crime scene with a friend highlighting the blood. Need I say more? I will. 6. Texting friends that you wish you had taken pictures of the body. Sicko. 5. Texting your friends that you are not sorry your husband is dead. Even if you aren't, should just say it in texts. 4. Texting your friends how pissed you are over the fact that custody laws do not favor a parent who crosses state lines with minor children. That is on you, stupid. 3. Going on a date the day after your husband was shot and killed by your brother in your mother's home. Again, stupid is, stupid does. 2. wearing a holster when police arrive at a shooting where you claim it was self-defense. So very stupid. And then 1, putting the alleged planted knife in the right hand of the left hand of a left-handed man, the most basic fact to get right. I mean left. And yet the woman who married him, lived with him, had 2 children with him, was too damn stupid to get it right. Thank goodness for the stupid in the phrase stupid criminals. Even with the worst of crimes, these stupid people give us much fodder for ridicule. So much fodder. We won't stop until you do. Now moving on to Brad Simpson. Suzanne Simpson, a real estate agent and mother of 4, was reported missing on October 7th, one day after she was last seen outside of her home in Olmos Park, Texas. Her disappearance followed a series of troubling events involving her husband, Brad Simpson, who is now charged with her murder. It all started on October 6th. Suzanne, her husband Brad, who we will call walking red flag Brad, and their 5-year-old he looks like he's about to be in a sequel to Holes, and their 5-year-old daughter attended a party at the Argyle Club. Suzanne and Brad got into a heated argument, and Suzanne left early with their daughter. She made a stop at the grocery store before heading home, but things took a dark turn from there. Shortly after arriving home, Suzanne called a family friend to say that she was coming over. On her way there, she called her mother, claiming Brad had assaulted her, describing injuries to her arm, back, and neck, which was later confirmed by her young daughter, who said she witnessed the event. Shortly after, Suzanne's phone was mysteriously deactivated. Gee, I wonder who did that. Was it a ghost? Aliens? Brad, maybe? The walking bundle of red flags? Now, if you guess C, congrats. You're already smarter than Brad. Thought the police would be too. No. I put a... see what happens when you read? You put periods in the wrong spot. I would like to give the writer their due. Take 2. If you guess C, congratulations. You're already smarter than Brad thought the police would be. That makes more sense. A neighbor who lived across... it's just reading Rainbow. A neighbor who lived across the street from the Simpsons said that he saw Brad and Suzanne loudly arguing after 10 p.m. in his front yard. He saw the 2 of them physically struggling with each other, and that Suzanne broke free from Brad's grasp and ran away. Brad then started running after Suzanne and was trying to grab her. The neighbor later lost sight of them, but heard screams coming from the wooden area across from his home. About an hour later, he heard Brad's truck start up, depart the area, and return an hour later. Now, according to cell phone data, Brad turned his phone on and off multiple times, starting at 11:09 p.m. through the following day. The next morning, Brad's black truck was caught on multiple surveillance cameras at a Whataburger. Video shows, multiple surveillance. I don't grammar tonight. Multiple surveillance cameras at a Whataburger. Video shows the world's sketchiest truck bed. There were 3 white trash bags, a large gray heavy-duty trash can, an ice chest, a large bulky item wrapped and secured in a blue tarp with a silver firewood rack placed on top of it as if to conceal and weigh the tarp down. Honestly, who knew breakfast combos came with a side of, I'm definitely hiding something? Around 30 minutes later, Brad's seen on camera at a Home Depot. But before he went inside, he approached a man in the parking lot and asked him for directions to the nearest dump. That's an amazing Home Depot. It must be in like Hawaii. It's outside. That's lovely. Fell in the white hoodies. Hysterical. So he asked for directions to the nearest dump. He then went in, purchased 2 bags of cement, an orange construction bucket, a box of 32-count heavy-duty trash bags, one bottle of 30-ounce Clorox disinfectant spray, and insect repellent. Where I'm sure the cashier was probably like, "Sir, do you need a loyalty card for all this incrimination? You're like one off of getting a free something." And the red flags keep piling up. He turns his phone off repeatedly to avoid being tracked. So angry. Stops at a dump site, returns from a neighboring county with cameras catching his vehicle, but now the object wrapped in the blue tarp is gone. He then cleans just the driver's side and rear passenger seat of his truck. You know, the 2 places police definitely wouldn't think to check. Smooth move, X-Lax. I mean, Brad. And oh yeah, he casually burned some electronics in a fire pit. Nothing to see here, folks. All right, let's take a moment to appreciate James Cotter, the supportive bestie who somehow thought, "Sure, I'll help you hide whatever this is." He really should have just said, "Bro, I'm busy." Let's break down Cotter's role in this circus. The day after Suzanne's disappearance, Brad texts Cotter, "If you're in Bandera, can you haul ass and meet me at your house?" Now, most of us would be like, why? But not James. He responds with, "I'll be there in 40 minutes. Because what are best friends for, right? But it doesn't stop there. Brad follows up with a totally casual instruction. Make sure and leave all that shit in the pump house, especially the gun. Ah, yes, the pump house. The perfect place for all your incriminating evidence storage needs. Hours later, Cotter texts Brad again, this time saying, "Get over here. I won't tell anyone." Followed by, "You're my brother. Listen, James, this isn't the Fast and Furious. You're not Vin Diesel, and no amount of brotherhood is going to make this less illegal. He's in the family." Unsurprisingly, Cotter's loyalty landed him in handcuffs. He was charged with tampering with evidence and possession of a prohibited weapon. Now, on Wednesday, October 9th, Brad Simpson was arrested. He did not seem surprised by the arrest or ask why he was being detained. There were numerous lacerations and bruises on his hands and arms. During his police interview, Brad claimed Suzanne, quote, lost her phone at Heb, H-E-B. Oh, and he wasn't too concerned about her being missing. In fact, he showed zero emotions because if you're going to make yourself look guilty, just go all the way. Why not? In August, Suzanne confided with her personal banker of being physically abused by Brad and that he would commonly take her cell phone away. He would tell the children that Suzanne had lost her phone. Suzanne said that if she went missing, to look for her in a lake. Brad Simpson is now facing murder charges along with a laundry list of others: tampering with evidence, unlawful restraint, domestic violence. His bond is set at $5 million, and Suzanne's remains are still believed to be somewhere in Bandera County. It's a tragic end for a woman who deserved so much better. The story isn't just about Brad Simpson's reckless attempts to cover his tracks or James Cotter's misguided loyalty. It's about Suzanne, a mother of 4, a professional, and a person who deserved to live free from fear and harm. Her disappearance is another reminder of the realities of domestic violence. Now, if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please don't wait to reach out. Help is available. You need to know your life matters, and there are people ready to stand behind you. Let Suzanne's story be a call to action for awareness, accountability, and most importantly, prevention. And with that, let's move into our case in chief. All right, Wisconsin v. Maxwell Anderson. Our case in chief tonight covers a harrowing case that has shaken Milwaukee. The tragic death of 19-year-old Sade. Is it Sade? Am I saying it right? Sadie? I want to say. You can drop it in the private chat whenever you can. I should have done that. I should have looked that up. I should have. Sadie, thank you. Oh, right on point. Sadie Carlina Robinson. Sadie was a bright and kind soul who was excited about a first date on April 1st, 2024. Tragically, it was a date that would end in unspeakable horror. It all started with a sense of excitement. Sadie told an employee at her apartment building she was looking forward to a date with Maxwell Anderson, a 33-year-old guy who seems to have skipped the don't be a total psycho lesson in life. That evening, she headed to the Twisted Fisherman, a seafood restaurant that sounds more like a Stephen King novel. For her first date with Anderson, according to witnesses, Anderson arrived first, mentioning to the bartender that he was there for a first date. So sweet, right? Yeah, no. That's the last thing he did that wasn't terrifying. Surveillance footage later confirmed the pair enjoyed food and drinks before moving to another location, Duke's on Water. At some point during their time there, Sadie sent a Snapchat to a friend, a moment that would become a key timestamp in the investigation. They left Duke's at around 9:06 p.m., and shortly after, Sadie's phone was located near Anderson's home on the 3100 block of South 39th Street. Surveillance footage showed two figures entering the house. And here's where the story goes from bad date to straight out of a Dateline episode. Around midnight, Sadie's phone pinged all over Milwaukee, like it was taking a scenic tour of places you'd never want to visit at night. Maxwell, did you really use her phone to ping half of Milwaukee? It's not a crime spree. That's a guided tour of every bad decision you've ever made. It left Maxwell's house, hit downtown Milwaukee, swung by her apartment, and then took a detour to Pleasant Valley Park. At 2:45 a.m., it reached Warnemount Park in Cudahy? Warnemount Park. It's a lovely spot if you're, say, a normal person on a hike. It's less lovely if you're disposing of evidence. Surveillance footage caught someone, allegedly Maxwell, headed down to the beach. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen enough crime shows to know nothing good happens at the beach after 3 a.m. Around this time, someone used a car to ram open a gate near the park. An act later, that's impressive. That's just straight impressive. An act later linked to Sadie's Honda Civic. The following morning at 7:29 a.m., a witness reported seeing a man in a gray hoodie and tan backpack setting a car on fire in a parking lot. Because clearly nothing screams innocence like torching someone else's car in broad daylight. A witness described the guy even tossed a lighter into the car like he was flipping a coin into a fountain. Talk about making wishes the wrong way. Inside, firefighters found her clothes and the remnants of a cell phone. So, if Maxwell thought he was covering his tracks, he clearly missed the memo that fire doesn't erase forensic evidence. Good job, buddy. Gold star for you. Surveillance showed Anderson walking away from the scene of the car fire and boarding a bus near his home. Maxwell Anderson, if you are listening, let me say this. You are single-handedly the reason that true crime podcasts exist. Hours later, a grim discovery was made. A human leg was found near the shore of Lake Michigan in Warnemount Park. And honestly, finding a random leg while doing park maintenance, that's a nope moment if I've ever heard one. Can you imagine calling your boss to report that? Authorities now believe it belonged to Sadie. More remains were eventually found near where Sadie's car was burned, but police are still searching for her full remains. By April 3rd, with Sadie still missing, police began piecing together the evidence. Friends reported her absence, sharing details like her Snapchat from Duke's and a Life 360 location ping from Warnemont Park at 4:30 a.m. on April 2nd. On April 4th, Maxwell Anderson was arrested. His car had a hoodie matching the one seen in surveillance footage. And his house had blood on the walls and gasoline containers. Because if you're gonna be a criminal, why not leave a checklist of evidence? Sadie's story it's heartbreaking and maddening. She was young, she was full of potential, and deserved so much better than this. But let's also take a moment to appreciate the sheer stupidity of some criminals. Maxwell might have been good at charming his way into a date, but when it came to covering his tracks, 0 stars would not recommend. Like, not even worth a Yelp review. Anderson, of course, has pleaded not guilty, but he is he looks like a Marvel villain. Just poorly thought out. Correction, he looks like the henchman to a Marvel villain. I'm not going to give him that much credit. Anderson's pleaded not guilty, but he is facing charges of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson, and remains in custody on a $5 million bail. If convicted, he faces life in prison. That trial is set to start on December 9th, 2024. And you know that with a mug like that, you know we'll be watching. Oh my gosh, let's get into And no, that is not my voice in that sound effect. All right, the case of Chloe Driver brings to the forefront mental health issues within our criminal justice system. Should those who are legally insane at the time of the crime receive a get out of jail free card? Or should there be some punishment as opposed to just mental health treatment? Should those who are legally sane yet mentally ill at the time of the crime receive required mental health treatment while incarcerated? Where do the needs of the mentally ill and the needs of society, as well as justice for the victims, meet? On December 8th, 2020, police were called to a home in the Mountain View neighborhood of Canton, Georgia. There, they found a gruesome scene. A woman, Chloe Driver, age 20, had stabbed herself after stabbing her 13-month-old daughter, Hannah, 4 times. One of those injuries, One of those injuries severed her carotid artery, and the child bled out quickly. After 6 days of trial, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before finding Driver guilty, but mentally ill, on charges of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, felony murder, cruelty to children in first degree, aggravated assault, and cruelty to children in the first degree. The verdict of guilty but mentally ill means that the jury rejected her insanity plea and found her criminally responsible for her actions. It also means that she will receive the mental health treatment she needs while incarcerated. During the trial, 15 state witnesses testified, while 6 testified for the defense. There were 135 pieces of evidence presented, including 911 calls, crime scene photos, and the knife. One of the state witnesses, Jason Spellers, testified about the polygamous and nomadic lifestyle of Chloe Driver and her partner, Benjamin. Benjamin. Ben Michael. Also known as Z. Also known. I'm not even going to come up with an analogy for him. It's not even worth it. Also talked about vegan diet, unique health practices like urine drinking, and dark therapy. I guess this is my dark therapy. They also refused all medication and health care, including prenatal care. Spillers portrayed Z as a patriarch of the household with traditional that is troubling. With traditional gender roles. In addition to Chloe, Z had two other current wives, Jessica Caffigan and Sarah Stiles, and they all had Hebrew names as well. He testified the belief system presented by the others was done positively. During cross-examination, Spillers became emotional when he described Driver as a loving mother. She loved her baby, he said, fighting back sobs. The state called Dr. Chowdhury, psychiatrist who examined Driver. He testified that she had found no illicit substances in Hannah's system. So the child hadn't been drugged before the crime. He said that Chloe told him, "I wasn't supposed to make it." His testimony consisted of going over his notes taken during interviews with Chloe. He testified that she felt that, like Z, had been collecting people. She had felt ganged up on and minimized. She struggled with the ability to leave and felt like she could not leave the situation. Dr. Chowdhury's notes also revealed that the last few months before the crime, while taking Chloe had become more paranoid over the last few months before the crime while taking CBD. Chloe revealed to him that she had been psychically abused for not cooperating with the group. She said she met Z when she was 17 and had Hannah a year after. She shared that she was not allowed to own a car, have a driver's license, or hold a job until they became homeless. The defense called Dr. McLendon Garrett, a forensic psychologist. She testified that Driver pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, despite being found competent to stand trial. Garrett diagnosed Driver with schizoaffective disorder, borderline personality disorder, and cannabis use disorder. She attributed much of her mental health struggles to a traumatic upbringing and abusive relationships. Dr. Garrett said that Driver had an unstable childhood, that her family was cold, and she left them multiple times, living with boys, even leaving the state to move in with one. She further testified that she experienced suicidal ideation early on and engaged in self-harm, including cutting and trying to overdose on sleeping pills. She was prescribed antidepressant medication while a teen, but only took them sporadically. She testified that the fact that Driver's husband, Benjamin Ben Michael, or Z, was charming, intelligent, and engaging, but he said the age gap between them, along with their traumatic history, created vulnerabilities. Garrett testified that Driver became part of a nomadic religious group led by Z. She began questioning the group's teachings after giving birth to Hannah, particularly about the lack of prenatal care, a birth certificate, and vaccinations. Garrett testified she was concerned her baby wouldn't have a normal life. Garrett outlined Driver's mental decompensation in the months leading up to Hannah's death. She became consumed with delusional thoughts, including a belief that photographs could, quote, download her back into moments in the past. Her behavior grew increasingly erratic. She tried to flee the group multiple times, once flagging down a motorist and another time calling her parents on a monitored phone. However, she was coerced back with threats of never seeing her daughter again. Garrett testified testified that driver's paranoia and delusions intensified shortly before Hannah's death. She was given CBD oil, which she believed heightened her magical thinking. Driver spoke to her of a belief that she was downloading her own sins into her child while breastfeeding. Dr. Garrett said that Driver was incredibly isolated and mentally unwell. Her relationship with the group and its dynamics created a perfect storm. However, we can say that Chloe Driver's upbringing in no way excuses her actions. She clearly murdered her child. However, her mental illness, which includes recorded delusions to her early teen years, can't be ignored. It was a tragedy that might have been prevented if Driver hadn't met Z. If he hadn't been the charismatic leader of what had been described as an alleged nomadic cult, or if she had received and accepted proper mental health care. This is something that we'll never know. Like Dr. Garrett said, the circumstances created a perfect storm, and little Hannah paid the ultimate price for it. Chloe Driver will be sentenced for her crimes on December 12th, 2024. In the meantime, the Georgia Department of Corrections will handle addressing her mental health needs. She is facing a mandatory minimum sentence of life for the felony murder conviction alone, which can be without or with parole after 30 years served. Given the severity of this charge, as well as the other guilty verdicts she received, parole is at most questionable. Moving on to Derek Joseph Daigneault, which is not at all how I would have ever guessed to pronounce that. Just Daigneault. In a case that could only be described as part tragedy, part dark procedural drama, and part testament to the loyalty of dogs, 29-year-old Derek Joseph Daigneault was sentenced to life in prison for the 2023 murder of his 26-year-old cousin, Mandy Rose Reynolds. The crime came to light in the most unexpected way thanks to Titan, Reynolds' loyal white Labradoodle, who refused to leave the crime scene and ultimately played a key role in solving the case. On April 4th, 2023, Daigneault shot Reynolds in the head, stuffed her body into a blue plastic storage container, and burned her remains in a field near Robinson, Texas. He fled the state in her car, leaving Titan behind at the scene. However, it turns out that while Daigneault might have ditched Titan, Titan was not about to ditch Mandy or let her killer get away. On April 5th, 2023, Robinson police were called to a brush fire in a field near a subdivision on Heston Circle, just south of Interstate 35. What they found was deeply unsettling. Human remains burned beyond recognition inside a plastic container. Nearby, a frantic Labradoodle barked at officers, refusing to leave the site. Enter Titan, the goodest boy in this saga. When the animal... Oh, so cute. Oh. When animal control officers scanned his microchip, they discovered the dog was registered to Mary Reynolds, launching a cascade of events that would lead to Daigneault's arrest. The following day, Titan was still at the scene, refusing to leave the area where Reynolds' remains were found. This persistence, paired with modern technology, thank you, microchips, gave investigators their first critical lead. As the investigation progressed, the story began to take shape. Daigneault had been staying with Reynolds in her San Marcos apartment for about a month. A textbook freeloader. I get it. Textbook freeloader. A textbook freeloader with a warrant out for his arrest. Daigneault was on felony probation and had a history of violent behavior. Mandy's father testified that she had expressed fear of Daigneault, who had become increasingly volatile. He was captured on April 4th, 2023, on Walmart, of course, surveillance footage. It's the mustache. The mustache just does it. Purchasing a plastic storage container, a shovel, and a gas can. The video showed him leaving the store in Reynolds' Honda Accord, with Titan's head poking out of the passenger window as if to say, "This is a bad idea, dude." Authorities later determined that Daigneault shot Reynolds in the head using a .380 caliber handgun belonging to her grandmother. He then placed her body in the storage container, drove to Robinson, and set the container on fire using an accelerant. While Titan stayed loyal to Mandy at the crime scene, Daigneault hit the road in her Honda Accord. Using surveillance footage, cell tower pings, and good old-fashioned police work, investigators tracked the car's movements. The phone data showed a journey north on Interstate 35 and through various towns, eventually leading authorities to Wichita, Kansas. On April 8th, local police spotted Reynolds' car and attempted to pull it over. What followed was a high-speed chase worthy of a Hollywood script or at least a B-grade action movie. Daigneault drove at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour, sideswiped a police cruiser, and crashed into another car before fleeing into a crowded grocery store. Shoppers scrambled as officers swarmed the building. Daigneault, apparently out of bright ideas, if he ever had any, was found hiding behind the shelf of canned goods. Inside of the car, officers found a .380 pistol used in the murder, along with receipts and other incriminating evidence. Daigneault's trial in McLennan County, Texas, began in November of 2024. Prosecutors presented a meticulous case demonstrating Daigneault's calculated actions before and after the murder. That's a scary man. During the trial, Assistant District Attorney Ryan Calvert didn't mince words. Quote, "If they know nothing else about Derek Daigneault other than what he did to Mandy, shooting her in the head, driving her body here to McLennan County, and setting her on fire like a piece of trash, that alone would have been enough to justify a life sentence." The defense attempted to argue that investigators failed to conduct DNA or fingerprint testing on the gun and other items, but the overwhelming weight of the evidence made this argument completely ineffective. The jury of 7 women and 5 men deliberated for just 35 minutes before returning a guilty verdict. Daigneault was sentenced to life in prison. Now, the sentencing hearing was not without drama. Oh, how did he get his hair to stick up? You know what? Don't answer that. I don't want to know. Daigneault yelled at Reynolds' brother and was escorted out of the courtroom. A fight later broke out between members of the Daigneaults and Reynolds family, underscoring the crazy toll of this case. Prosecutors revealed Daigneault's extensive criminal history, including violent offenses and prior conviction for shooting someone as a juvenile. Calvert summed up the need for a life sentence. Quote, "He is just an extremely violent individual, and he cannot be trusted with the safety of this or any other community." Man, what a guy. Well, that's a wrap for tonight's roller coaster docket. Let's recap the wild ride. We started with the Kathryn Restelli case, a tale of family ties turned deadly. A staged self-defense claim, suspicious internet searches, and a knife strategically placed in the wrong hand, brought new meaning to the phrase, keeping it in the family. In this house of lies, the only thing sharper than the weapon was the level of bad decision making. Then there was Brad Simpson, the walking red flag, who somehow thought a Home Depot receipt wouldn't scream guilty. Between the tarp-wrapped mystery object in his truck bed, the sketchy cement and bleach purchases, and his alarming apathy, this guy wasn't just hiding evidence, he was practically building a billboard. Poor Suzanne deserved so much better. And Brad's sloppy trail of red flags ensured justice didn't miss him. Then the episode's centerpiece, Wisconsin v. Maxwell Anderson, was as chilling as it was baffling. A promising young woman, Sadie Robinson, excited for a first date, crossed paths with a predator whose crimes were as horrific as his attempts to cover them up were inept. From the haunting surveillance footage to a burned car and a grim discovery along the shores of Lake Michigan, Maxwell's actions shocked us all. This case reminds us of the fragility of trust and also why we're thankful for meticulous investigations. When finally our just desserts served up, the loyalty of Titan, the real hero of the night, the steadfast Labradoodle refused to leave his owner, Mandy Reynolds' side, even after her tragic end. Titan's microchip led investigators to uncover Derek Daigneault's, who cares? He's guilty. Horrifying crime. While the case was heart-wrenching, it's a testament to the bond between humans and their furry companions, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest leads make the biggest difference. So what did we learn? Crimes might be bizarre, but people and dogs are full of surprises. Whether it's hidden evidence, outlandish excuses, or courtroom antics, justice has a way of catching up. So thank you all for tuning in and joining us as we laughed, gasped, and occasionally asked, did that really happen? Stick with us for more twists, turns, and trials next week on Night Court, where the gavel drops harder than your Wi-Fi during a binge watch. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please leave a comment down below and follow us on social media for more updates during the week and behind-the-scenes content. We can be found pretty much anywhere as TCWT Media. Now, next week is going to be the last week of the year, and it is going to be a doozy because we will be covering the hottest trials of 2024. So get ready for that. Listen, everybody, until then, keep your humor sharp, your popcorn buttery, and your faith in justice and dogs alive. I'm JT, and I'll see you all next Sunday at 8 p.m. for an awesome collective episode of Night Court. Good night, night owls.